Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 o'clock, so we'll start the Planning Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Pam Posnett, Chair of Planning. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park, nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist anyone who needs any assistance. Please put your phone to silent during this meeting. We will be using the audio-visual system this evening, and the meeting will also be streamed live on YouTube. Members wishing to speak, please raise your hand if you wish to speak and speak directly into the microphone in front of you. Remember to turn it off once you have finished. Members voting will be by a show of hands. I would like to introduce those present to the members this evening. So on my right, I have Councillor Webster, Councillor Brown, Councillor Evans, Councillor Fisher, Councillor Illingworth, Councillor Pritchett, Councillor Smith and Councillor Wood. We have a team of officers present who are on to my right, Tom Pickwill, and on my left is Senior Planning Officer Andrew Cunningham. We also have the other Senior Planning Officer, who is Richard Redford, and then Planning Officer Gareth Edwards. We also have our democratic teams present, assisting with the technology and taking the minutes. So that is Sarah Evans and Adam Green. Apologies for absence. Councillor Illingworth. Oh, I've just had a message that Councillor Holmes and Councillor Chandler are stuck in traffic, but they've also had a punctured tyre. So hopefully they will join us and I will announce when they're both joined the council chamber. We need to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of July. Has anybody got any concerns with those minutes at all? Can somebody propose? Proposed by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Webster. The other minutes were on the 11th of August, and I'd just like to make a statement before we go to a vote on those minutes. Just to clarify the position on the voting, an amendment to the minutes is proposed as shown in red. Every member's got a copy. That the application be approved subject to conditions set out in Appendix C. 4 were for, 4 against, 1 abstention. I, as the chair, did not vote. Due to a tie in the vote, in accordance with the procedure rules set out in the Constitution, the chair exercised her casting vote for the application, which carried the motion to approve the application. So now I've read that amendment out and you've all seen it. Are there any issues with that report? Councillor Evans?
Possible to just ask the solicitor, there's nothing in the Constitution that says the chair cannot vote for, oh, I've got this one. Yeah, there's nothing in the Constitution that says the chair cannot vote whether the recommendation comes forward from the committee, is there? I don't know, I've not seen that.
Sorry, I'm not sure I'm getting the question. The chair cannot vote?
No, on this particular instance, the chair did not vote when it came to the recommendation, which is what Councillor Pam Posnett is saying, which is fine. But is the chair allowed to vote on a recommendation when it comes from the committee?
Yeah, I see no issues in the Constitution.
Therefore, my concern is, as obviously the chair did not indicate she was voting for, against or abstain during that vote. I'm right in saying, I've seen the video, so I know that's the case. And now you're saying, this worries me, that someone who does nothing is taking an abstention. And I know from past, my 20 years of experience, that is not the case and can never be the case. The chair has to find out who's voting, and if they do not vote, what their vote is.
So to clarify, the chair's initial vote when she didn't vote? Is that what you're asking?
Hang on, I know, because obviously I'm sure the chair knows, when we counted the vote, we went 4-4, 4 against, no abstentions.
There was one abstention at the time.
No, there wasn't at the time. It was 4-4. Oh, sorry, no, there was an abstention from, let's forget that. Oh, sorry, there was Councillor Pritchett who abstained, correct? But there was only one abstention. That's correct, isn't it? What you're now saying is there are 2 abstentions, but you cannot take that unless you see a vote.
I think what Councillor Evans is trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong in the interpretation of this, is that he's saying that if it was legitimate or free for the chair to vote, normally through the motion, the chair chose not to vote in this instance for whatever reason, but is that contrary to anything in our constitution, where then you stay silent and then vote whenever you've seen the original outcome? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not aware that it's against anything. I think it's just voting at the end in the casting vote capacity. I'm not aware of any reason why that can't be done.
So what you're saying, and obviously I'll have to check the constitution, is if a member does not put their hand up during when it comes to a recommendation, that is taken by the chair as an abstention.
No, I think the way I'm looking at it is that the vote was just cast later but it was also the casting vote as well.
No, I'm not talking about the casting vote. I'm talking about the original vote was 4-4, 4 against, and 1 abstention from Councillor Pritchett, and Pam didn't vote. But that to me is not constitutionally correct, because she had the vote, and someone, you or whoever, has to point out you have to vote either abstain, for, or against. You can't sit there, as I understand it.
If I can come in, if I correct myself from right, what we did was we did the first vote, which you had to recount because they couldn't count it. So I don't think that was a vote. We only had 1 vote in my recollection, which was where we tied, and then the chair gave the casting vote, which would be a vote. That's my recollection. I'll have to read it back, watch it back. But my recollection was that the first vote was null and void because you had miscounted. If you don't mind me saying so, I don't mean it like that, but I mean that's what happened. And then we sort of started the process again. That's my understanding of what happened that evening.
Yeah, so I think what happened, it wasn't that the vote was null and void. When we asked for the votes, I can't remember if it's for or against now, we couldn't clearly see how many hands were up, which is when we asked for clarity and members to keep their hands raised at that point.
Trying to be clear about this, because we had a mayor who had a casting vote once. A mayor or a chairman has the right to vote twice, effectively. Once in the full vote, and then the casting vote is to split a even decision, which is what we had here. What I'm saying is what was recorded in the minutes was 4-4, 4 against, and 1 abstention, and yet there were 10 people there. So how is that possible? The public need to see what's happening correctly, and the chair has a vote, and surely we should have counted everybody in the room as voting, whether it's an abstention, which the chair is perfectly entitled to do, or whatever. But at the time, that was not what happened.
I'm really sorry, Councillor. I'm not quite following what you're saying. Chair, what you may want to do is invite a motion to defer the approval or refusal of the minutes, and we can follow that point up outside, because I don't think we're quite understanding what the question is. Okay,
that's fine. It's just, as I say, it's important. Every member here has a right to vote, and if they don't put their hand up, and I've seen it happen in a full council meeting, the mayor usually then pulls them and says, "How are you voting?" Because obviously the chief executive usually does it every meeting, makes certain how many people are here, makes certain he's got the right tally of votes.
Inglis.
It really is quite simple. There's only 3 ways to vote: for, against, or abstain. if you don't vote, then somebody should ask you if you are an abstention, because they're the only three options. And to the best of my knowledge, and I believe I'm right, there is absolutely nothing in the Constitution that stops a chairperson from casting their vote, from using their second or casting vote, regardless of how they've voted the first time. So they can be for it, against it, or have abstained. It's ever so simple, isn't it? You either abstained or you didn't. Yeah.
Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on, it says resolved that the application be approved subject to conditions set out in Appendix C. I thought during the meeting we agreed that there would be a condition to thicken and heighten the hedge from the access track to the site, and also that the landscape management plan, and I think it was agreed on the night with the applicant, would be checked against the latest industry standard.
I understand. I think it was condition 11. I can't quite remember which number of condition it was, but the motion that was put forward, and I'm sure Tom can check, was that the application be approved subject to the conditions that were set out in the Appendix C at that time.
Right, so what happened to that, the point that I was raising then about raising the height of the hedge when you nodded in agreement? Is that going to be done? Because at that meeting, I was under the impression that that would be accepted. If you would have said it's not accepted, I would have voted against the thing. Right? So that was not satisfactorily resolved. Then with the looks of things, it was quite clear to me, if you watch the thing, that it was we were dealing with tidying up the conditions, and I was led to believe that that had been accepted. It's within the same landowner.
We'll look into that. Okay, and come
Yeah,
back.
well, I
to
mean,
it.
hang on. I mean, you're asking now. I mean, I can't.
No, we can defer the minutes till the next
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Right, so I'll propose a motion that we defer until the next meeting. Seconder, Councillor Brown. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Chandler. To announce that you've joined.
Oh, well, I'm just going to apologise. We've been stuck from the other side of the police station. Sorry.
For roadways. I was just going to announce that Councillor Holmes and Councillor Chandler joined the meeting during that discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Right, so we're now on then to the application. Oh, sorry. Anybody got any declarations of interest? Councillor Brown?
I'm going to declare an interest in the final item 22/00705 FUL, the flats north of the car park at Chapel Street. The reason being is I am the portfolio holder for housing, and I just think for public perception purposes, it'd be right for me to just remove myself from the committee at that stage. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Right, so schedule of applications, we've now got the Burdett's Close, Great Dalby, and this is just for the variations of conditions 5, 8 and 23, and discharge of conditions 4, 11, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 and 21 of the planning approval that has already been given. So I believe it's Richard who will be speaking on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. What I would like to do first, councillors, is go through the presentation so that my presentation then has an element of context to sit alongside. The slide that is on the screen at the moment shows the application site outlined in red. Members will see that to the north there is a road that abuts the site. That is Burdetts Close. That is the access point from which permission already exists for access to take place. That is not being reconsidered as part of this variation of condition, but that is where the access is located. If you can move to the next slide. This yet again shows Burdetts Close to the top of the plan, but also shows the layout of the development within the site. That layout was also approved as
Yeah.
Is this, yeah, there we are again. Right, so that on the screen there shows the approved layout from the development that was approved. You will see on that plan, and apologies that you can't read it, you will see on the roads little areas of text. Those texts delineate the changes related to conditions 5, 8, and 23. If you move to the next slide, we now have a number of slides that pertain to the conditions being discharged. I've only put some of the details in, but this first slide shows some of the hedgerow and tree planting schedule for the landscaping covered by condition 3. So we can see there the Latin names, the English names, the numbers, heights, etc. for those. The next slide shows the shrub planting and the plants to be put in the bed. So you can see there the likes of clematis and gold tip spindles in there. The next slide shows the actual landscaping plan itself in the context of hard landscaping, as well as in indication as to where the soft landscaping is to be sited. The final slide shows the rights of way that cross the site, and this slide relates to conditions 11 and 12 sought to be discharged. We can see there that the solid blue lines representing the existing footpaths to be diverted, the broken lines with regular intervals are the alternative footpaths, whilst the long dash followed by 2 small dots, long dash, are the footpaths that will remain unaffected. So they are obviously relate to 3 of the conditions to be discharged. I've not put further details in because the other conditions, the information provided is very technical and comprises long reports. And I didn't think you would really appreciate vast swathes of additional text in this presentation. So in terms of the presentation, the application as set out in the main agenda seeks permission for the variation of 3 conditions that were attached to outline planning approval 18-00721 OUT, which was for the erection of 35 dwellings with access and layout approved as part of that outline permission. It also seeks the formal discharge of the 10 pre-commencement conditions that were attached to that outline approval. The requirements of these conditions, both those being varied and those sought to be discharged, are as set out in the agenda, as is the site's history. The application forms detail that the conditions proposed to be varied are being varied in order to meet current highway standards to ensure that the internal roads are capable of adoption by the County Council. At the time of the outline approval being approved, the standards were different, and the drawings that were approved then met the standard at that point in time. They've been updated. From a planning perspective, it's merely a reflection of the updating standards, which has brought the variation submission. As indicated through the slides, the access is by vehicle up Burdetts Close, which was approved at outline, and there are no plans to change this approved access location. Currently a field across which public right-of-way traverse, ground level falls in a number of directions, including towards Burdetts Close. A combination of trees and hedgerows are in location along site boundaries. The site adjoins Great Dorby Village to the north and western site boundaries, while agricultural land is to the east and south. The relevant local plan policies are as set out in the agenda report, and the site is an allocated site within the current local plan. Technical and third-party comments are as per the main agenda, although members are advised that one additional item of representation has been received. This representation raises concerns in respect of the suitability of Pedet's Close to serve as the vehicular access, including during the construction. However, as already mentioned, the access, location and principle of access via Pedet's Close is not being considered as part of this submission. Issues for consideration fall under two umbrellas. The first relating to the variation of conditions 5, 8 and 23, and secondly, the discharge of the pre-commencement conditions. The principle of development has already been established through the outline approval, as well as the site's allocation for housing as set out in the local plan. The conditions to be varied, or as indicated, all relate to highway matters and in respect of updated standards required by the County Council in order for those roads to be adopted. Amended plans have been provided through the application, resulting in the drawings that have been shown. The Highway Authority, who have been involved in these discussions resulting in the amended plans, are satisfied that the alterations made meet current standards and will result in the roads being capable of adoption. Officers consider that on the basis of these changes, there will be no impact on amenity, and as such, it is recommended that the variation of these three conditions be approved. With regards to the discharge of conditions, the details in respect of these remain as set out in the main agenda. I would, however, like to highlight in respect of condition 3 contained within the conditions list in the main agenda. I have made an error in that the details being approved by condition 3 that have been submitted for approval for condition 3 have not actually been transcribed into the condition. If this application is approved, this condition number 3 will need to be amended to reflect the documents that have been submitted, considered, and found to be acceptable by officers, taking account of highway comments with regards to visibility, etc. On this basis, the application is recommended for approval as per the agenda, but with condition 3 altered to reflect the correct documents being approved in respect of landscaping. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions for Richard? Councillor Brown?
On condition 3, yeah, just where is the correct wording? Can we? Is that the actual correct wording that's in the report? Yeah.
No, Councillor Brown, it's not, unfortunately. That condition is the wording that was used on the original
Yeah, I
outline
just want to be
permission.
clear. So that's
Yeah,
some correct.
That's
Do we have the correct wording that we would use?
here now, no, that it would be changed to reflect the various the updated landscape drawings and documents that have been provided. So it would read along the lines of landscaping shall be implemented in accordance with drawings and then the respective numbers dated whatever received by the local planning authority on the respective dates.
Right, okay, I'll leave it for now.
Councillor Chandler?
Chairman, I raised at briefing on Monday the tree planting and said that I was horrified to read we were going to set trees at 1 metre apart. And I suggested we went to even as far as 10 metres, but you certainly can't set trees 1 metre apart. You'll have a forest within a year. So can we have clarification of what we're actually going to agree on for that, please?
Thank you. just getting clarification from the submitted drawings.
I mean, I would suggest that 5 metres is plenty close enough, but probably 10 metres is too far, but we certainly, you've got to move away from a metre. It's on page 20 of our report, 4.02.
From looking at the relevant document, the trees will be in a 1 metre by 1 metre by 1 metre tree pit at 10-metre intervals.
10 metre intervals, yeah, well, that's better than being 1 metre. Thank you.
Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you, Richard. I wasn't clear from the papers this afternoon when I looked on the portal. Probably could help me. I probably couldn't see the wood for the trees with too many documents. At the end of Burdett's Close, how wide is it going into the field?
Just opening up the most recent layout plan. It appears as though the roadway will be approximately 5 metres wide, 5-6 metres wide.
Right, approximately or exactly. I mean, from a recent similar Bottisford application, the highways required 4.8 metres, right? But for adopting the total, including footpath and a little bit spare, they wanted 7.8 metres. And I understand that there's reference in the papers here to being two adoptable standards.
The drawings that I have don't actually give me a figure as to the width of the roadway and the width of the footpaths. The confirmation from the Highways Authority in their technical response was that they are of a standard that meets the level they need in order to adopt them, so that they will be maintained by the Highway Authority as opposed to the residents of the development.
Yeah, but it's just that it's of a significant interest locally in terms of what people are raising and for lorries and everything going through. I mean, it's a difficult thing for me to support if I don't know the width going through, you know, and then all of a sudden does it then widen as they go through? It's not clear, and I just want to say it's not something I'm content with. That's all.
The drawings provided indicate that the actual road carriage width, ignoring the footpaths, is the same width as the existing road on Burdett's Close where it meets, before it hits the field. So the width of Burdett's Close is continued up into the site for vehicles being able to pass.
Has that answered your question, Councillor Pritchett?
An answer, but I don't have to be, you know, it is a cul-de-sac of a few houses, you know, it wasn't built to open that cul-de-sac up, I don't think, you know, they could have left it a bit wider, and it doesn't look quite, just something I'm not happy with it, and I would have preferred to have seen measurements as well. So
Okay, fine. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If I could ask the planning officer, page 28, it says here ward councillors object. My concern, my serious concern is Severn Trent and the sewerage. Have you talked to Severn Trent, sewerage, etc.? Because this, to me, is so vital. I mean, it's unbelievably vital. We want to come and see what we've got at Waltham. It's something that we've got to look at before we put any houses anywhere. No, I mean, it's really, really serious. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. In terms of your comments, they are noted. Obviously, on the application, both Severn Trent and Leicestershire County Council as the lead local flood authority were consulted. You'll see on page 27 of the report that Severn Trent came back with no objections to the scheme, whilst the lead local flood authority had no objections either. Obviously, we as officers have got to go from their technical guidance and answers on it. While I can fully understand and appreciate your concerns, the technical guidance I'm being given is that they're acceptable.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I always find, and I've said this before in planning committee meetings, a picture is always helpful. I know we've all been to the site, but if we'd have had a picture, then I think we'd have got a fair idea of where we were. My concern is, from what you're saying, we are voting for something that we don't have the wording of in front of us. And that always gets me nervous as a member of this planning committee. At the moment, if I cannot see the wording that we've got, that, you know, Ronan has pointed out is not in here, and the correct wording, it's not really something I can live with if I approve the recommendation and then don't have the wording. It worries me greatly that we haven't got the actual condition variations. And the last question is, I presume we still need a full planning application to come through on this too, to actually cover all the matters of the design of the buildings and all the rest of it before this gets approved fully.
Through you, Chair. In terms, if I can deal with those questions in reverse, we currently have a reserved matters application for the design, scale and layout in being considered at the moment. Now, one of the issues is that on the outline permission, landscaping was marked down as a reserved matter, and then there was condition number 3 is in reality a duplicate condition, because the condition that requires the submission of the reserved matters includes the provision of landscaping details. So to some extent, you've got the same condition twice. Now, in terms of that, in terms of the details being approved, I'm just looking at the right, because the reserved matters application is nearing a point where a decision can be made, and the documents submitted for the reserved matters match those submitted on this application. So the condition will read along the lines of the landscaping shall be carried out in accordance with, and if I can just go through the relevant conditions, the relevant bits in the approved the recommended approved documents condition, it will be the drawing number 2106.1.1 revision E, and planting schedules therein, tree protection plan, they will basically be the two drawings that will be quoted in that. I'm just going to flick back to that to make sure that there's nothing else. So there will be two additional plans quoted. One will be one that shows details of topsoil and subsoil placement, and the second one that shows additional details of the planting. So the condition will read: the landscaping shall be implemented in accordance with those the four drawings numbered received by the council on 14th of July 2022. The landscaping plan is the one that was on the presentation as well.
The Chandler.
Again, Madam Chairman, I would like it recorded that Councillor Holmes has raised this question about sewerage. I don't doubt what Mr. Redford's told us is not correct, but it's what happens to other people in Great Dolby. I mean, we have a history of this where we're having building taking place without the infrastructure in place, and it's not always the new development that suffers, it's the people who've been there a long, long time that suffer. And I would like that recording in the minutes, if we may, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. No, it's a very valid point on the water issues, and we know that they happen. There is some recent case law, some appeals that have gone through that have actually considered this specifically to do with water companies. And what they've said is where the water companies don't provide any response or objection on that basis, without further evidence to the contrary, it can't be ignored. And I appreciate what you're saying, and that you as local residents know that. But what they've said is it's not for these planning applications for that to happen. It needs to happen outside of that process. I sympathise with it. I can only tell you what the appeal says and what the case law says. But what they say is it's not a good enough reason to refuse an application. And I've got to
I'm
make
not
that
suggesting that we refuse it, but I just think it needs to be recorded when things do happen and people go back in time and say, why was this allowed? If it's minuted that we have raised the question but we can't do anything about it, at least it clears the committee in my eyes. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just looking at it, Richard, you say the reserve matters is nearly there. Question I have is, would it not have been a lot more transparent to bring the two things together into one report and make a decision based upon that, and clear the ambiguity that we have this evening? Because you know, I think it is a allocated site, etc., and it's about getting it done in the right way. And I'm just a little bit confused that we've got a few little gaps here, and why we wouldn't just bring it as one application and get it all done and dusted if it's nearly ready anyway.
Thanks, Councillor Brown. I think I can understand. I'll ask Richard to come in a minute. My understanding is that they came in as two separate applications, and I think the planning officer actually asked if they could be treated as one for that very reason, and it couldn't be. When we looked at the report as it was being drafted for the reserve matters, it was based on the hypothetical outcome of this particular application, the variation, and what it meant was you were being asked to make a decision and look at papers based on a hypothetical undecided position, which made it really quite unclear, which is why we suggested pushing the reserve matters back. But I'll ask Richard to just confirm. That was my understanding.
That I can confirm that's the case, yes.
Councillor Pritchett.
Councillor Brown has asked my question, and I'm still none the wiser as to why we don't sort where the houses are on the design and then fit it in, you know. And it's part of the design process, and the parish council surely should be involved in that process. You know, I mean, there are quite a few aspects of this that don't seem to fit in the rural setting. And I think that I've got no comments on this at the moment, have I, from the parish council?
We are asking questions of the officer. I understand your comment, councillor Pritchett. Can I move on to councillor Illingworth?
Thank you, Chair. It's been alluded to already, but this matter of statutory consultees, and if they've got no objection, then there's nothing, we've got no teeth. Correct me if I'm wrong, those who have been on this committee long enough to remember when I was sat where you are now, councillor Posnett. Did we not adopt a strategy as opposed to a policy that meant we challenged the likes of Severn Trent and Highways? Because we all know that they never object to anything. Everything meets them. I mean, everything's satisfactory. I thought we decided.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, councillor Illingworth, and I'm not disagreeing with what you said, but they're not really questions to the officer, are they?
Well, now what I'm asking is the officer aware that historically we had made a decision, shall we say, to not necessarily accept no objection at face value and not for it to be qualified or quantified?
I think this probably comes back to the advice before, and it comes from appeals and case law, that it says that it's not the place to do it in the terms of determining the planning application to question that. You can only go off what they say. That's not to say that that can't happen outside of the process of a particular application, but it isn't the place to do it. And like I said, to refuse an application on that basis would not succeed at appeal.
But this is where we determine applications. It's the whole point of a meeting.
Switch your microphone off, please.
Yes, sorry, Chair.
Fisher.
Just a question regarding condition 11. With there being 2 previous outline planning applications, could you let me know when the Local Highways Authority carried out their assessment, and was it an in-person or desktop assessment? Because some of that period was during COVID, if it was in 2020. I can't find that information out from the planning portal.
In terms of condition 11, excuse me, during COVID, the county council was providing companies doing highway surveys of means within which to do them in order to get the necessary data. Now, the information for the construction management plan is, I'm just going to find it. The one on which they came with a no objections received by us on the 13th of April this year. And I'm just going to see if there's a date in as to when works were done. Because it's a construction management plan, it wasn't, I believe, a case of going out actually conducting vehicle movement surveys as such. It was a case of them saying, this is how the construction management is planned to work. This is our intended operation, how it's going to work, and on which the county, as the highway authority, commented.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if it was like an on-site assessment or remote, that was all, just to see whether they've actually assessed the area.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Councillor Pritchett, is it a question? Your microphone, please.
Apologise. Included in the construction management plan are comments relating to trying to endeavour to not to damage trees, protect things, etc. And then linking this to the landscape plan. What work has been done assessing those aspects of the construction management plan and landscape plan against EN2, where where it says we will seek a biodiversity net gain?
In terms of the construction management plan, I know that we as officers have assessed the proposed landscaping scheme, and the Highway Authority have also done so in order to ensure that none of the planting actually impedes highway and pedestrian visibility. Now, the nature of the proposal is such that the planting scheme proposed would introduce a broader range of planting in the area and therefore contribute to an increased biodiversity in the area as well.
I'll just come up with a supplementary there, cherry laurel and some of the other things, but where is your work where you've got your baseline biodiversity situation and the net gain? Now it's a rhetorical question, Richard. It's a rhetorical question. The law comes in next August, and many organisations like Rushcliffe are much more advanced in this. So, I mean, has there been a sort of, this is where we are now, and this is where the gain is, and if we haven't done it, then that's fine. Just say we haven't done that. We cannot just assume that various plants are adding value when we're putting so many houses in what is a field with some nice hedges, and it will all be better.
Through you, Chair, I think it's important to bear in mind that the application we have in front of us is for a variation of conditions on an existing approval. As such, biodivide, as much as we may desire a biodiversity net gain requirement, we can't insist on one or require one, and as such, the information that you're seeking would be unreasonable for us to ask, especially considering the conditions being varied related to highways, and they have given us the landscaping scheme in order to meet the provisions of that landscaping condition.
With that, I mean, what your answer needs to be, it needs to be in relation to the date of the local plan, which was October 2018. That's when we published the EN2 in the local plan. So I hear what you're saying, but that's been extant policy from that time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I need clarification on, obviously, most people, including Severn Trent, have not objected, but we can see the massive amount of information we've got on sewage works at that area, and it causes, just like Councillor Illingworth, it causes me concerns time after time. We've had this before with these things. Severn Trent seems to retrospectively try and pull things back, having not really given us any clear guidance as to what's going on. It's just the parish council objections. I noticed they've objected to council condition 11, condition 12 and condition 16. I'd like the officer's opinion why those objections are not. It says that they, on the condition 11, they say there's no plan for construction traffic management. Have they not been provided with a plan for construction traffic management? In which case we should have gone back to them if there is a construction traffic management and actually showed it to them and said, can you re-comment on that? And it also says on the football management, it says, I mean, the footpath management, it says, once again, there isn't a satisfactory plan for the management of these paths. Is this because they came in after the parish council objected? In which case I have an issue because, of course, they should have had a chance to come back to you. Or what's going on here? And the same with the archaeologist one.
Through you, Chair. The applications came in with the application and were made available on the website. The initial consultation took place on the 21st of July with not only the parish council, but with the various consultees as well. Subsequent reconsultation took place on the 13th of August last year, and then subsequently the 24th of November last year, then subsequently the 25th of April this year, all of those reconsultations included the parish.
Yeah,
I can't sit, the information was there. I can't answer why they didn't come back.
Sorry, my point is that this parish council object has no date. So I haven't a clue when this actually came in. And are they right that they have not seen a construction management plan, which is what they say there?
The consultation, the response from the parish council came in on apologies, it's the date hasn't been entered into the relevant tab, so I'm having to find the response in uniform in a separate element.
Right, I think it's time we heard from the agent. Caroline Chabe will be joining us by Zoom tonight, and perhaps she can put some clarity on some of the comments that have been made, because I'm sure she's been listening in. Is Caroline there? Good evening.
Hear me?
Yeah, oh, yes, can see and hear you now. There was a little bit of a pause, Caroline. You will have 3 minutes to speak. I will warn you when you're 30 seconds from the end. So when you're ready, if you can start speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Just as I was joining, Chair was saying that I might have the opportunity to answer some of the questions that have been posed, I think, but it did cut out a little bit as I was joining. So please do let me know if there's anything else that I can answer for you. I'm pleased that this application is obviously coming forward to the committee with the officer's recommendation for approval, because we've been having positive and proactive working on the application over, certainly over quite a long time now. The site already has outline planning permission, with the details of the access and site layout already having been designed in detail at outline stage by the site promoter. And by the site promoter, I mean someone who wasn't actually going to develop the site themselves, but was going to get the permission on it and then sell it. So now the site is being taken forward by Taggart Homes, a family-run house builder with a reputation for high-quality homes and an approach of using architects to create bespoke schemes for its developments. As well as needing to respond to the most up-to-date highway design requirements, Taggart has taken the opportunity to accommodate good placemaking and create an attractively landscaped layout. The outline planning permission left no flexibility for these changes, hence this application to vary it. The application sought to address technical issues with the layout in terms of highway and drainage design in consultation with the authorities, so as to ensure a fully adoptable and deliverable development. I can confirm that the access into the site is 5.5 metres wide, with the footways plus the footways either side, and this has been tracked for with vehicle tracking for the fire engine and refuse collection vehicles, and those drawings are on the application. The access point into the site is already approved, and this isn't under consideration on this application. It's the details of the site layout and access within the site. We've also been back and forth a number of times with drainage authorities over extensive technical details to make sure that those drainage details align with the highways details and the landscaping. And it's about, this application is about getting that basis right, the layout, the detailed access design, the landscaping. The reserve matters application is a sort of a layer on top of that with the housing design.
Got 30 seconds left.
We've also provided additional information in respect of diversion of public rights of way and ecological enhancements, and how these will be impacted during the construction process. And we've been back and forth on that too with the county ecologists. So this application leads to an improved basis for the site to be taken forward and for the reserve matters approval to hopefully follow on from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, if you just sort of stay there, members, are there any questions for Caroline? No, it doesn't appear so. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Now I'd like to ask Councillor Robert Child to take his place on the table. Councillor Child, you know that you've got 3 minutes. You know how to use the microphone. I'll tell you when you've got 30 seconds remaining. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've got two or three comments. One on the discharge of the conditions, which has been aired tonight. The reserve matters application, that's the 21-00289, still to be determined, will decide the points relating to landscaping, landscape maintenance and footpath maintenance. Can I ask the committee through the chair, how can you be satisfied that approving the landscaping and appearance scheme tonight, i.e. discharging these three conditions, doesn't prejudice or predetermine the landscape element of the reserve matters application? In relation to the variations to the plans, whilst I note that the Highway Authority has got no objection to the conditions 5, 8 and 23 being varied, the residents of Burdett's Close, quite rightly in my opinion, are grieved and frustrated at the restricted nature of the close, particularly as it joins the field. The report states that the three conditions which relate to highway matters are proposed in order to ensure the access and roads are all capable of meeting the standard for adoption. I find that difficult to believe because when you examine the 5 photos submitted by an objector to the case officer in September last year, it shows you that it is impossible to get a vehicle through to the site. If the flats on the left-hand side with no garages park outside their property as they do now, and houses on the opposite side park on the road, you cannot get a lot of vehicles through to the site. The parish council shares their frustration over the impact they will suffer from vehicles using Burdett's Close as the access. And really, finally, just on the sewer with the Severn Trent, just to help members, is the pumping station in Great Dalby narrows to 4 inches pipes, and maybe
30 seconds.
Yeah, that's fine, Chair. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Charles? Councillor Bridge?
It would be useful if the committee could see those photographs if they're readily available. I mean, I have made a site visit and seen.
They're on the website.
Councillor Holmes.
Councillor Charles, as you know, I do go on about sewers, but can you tell me if there are problems at this time now? There are, and also the other thing that concerns me greatly is the concrete and etc. that's going to be there for all these houses. How much flooding is there, and is there a possibility of it somehow being discharged along the brook? I don't know. Sorry.
And the Severn Trent have put a header tank. If I'm not sure that word is the quite right, but it's going to hold the discharge of water. It's alleged to prevent the flooding, but the point is on the foul. We've had to have tankers out there 2 or 3 times over the last few months to empty the sewage because it can't cope currently with that's flowing. The problem is from Great Dolby to Kirby Bellers. It's the piping is not. So the men apparently told the chairman of the parish council.
Thank you, Councillor Child. Any more questions? Councillor Evans.
Thanks for that talk. Can I ask, obviously, we're in a tricky situation, which I'm not quite used to. This allocated site, we can safely say, you know, the permission has been given for the housing to be there. That can't be questioned. I understand that. But we have a process, which we've adapted recently through you, Chair, of community liaison, which is to actually get the applicant to sit down with the parish council, yourself, and the actual borough councillor to go, when it gets to full planning, we usually go through a process so that we deal with the minutiae and everything to get it right before it comes before the committee. We are in a tricky situation here, Chair, because we're sort of edging towards full in parts here rather than in one solid case. And I'm looking at Andrew Cunningham, who knows that we have a preferred route for this now. Has there been any liaison with the parish, meetings face-to-face, which we can now do, or anything like that between the applicant, the parish council and yourselves?
If I recall, there was a virtual meeting in the summer of 21. I believe it was in July, when the developer, the agent, and his team were there. But I'm not aware of. I'm not on the parish council. I'm not aware of anything else. I understand the case officer, when he visited the site, said that he'd spoken to a number of residents and who seemed reasonably happy with it, but we have no knowledge of that. That was for putting the notices up. Thank you.
Councillor Illingworth.
And it's not interrogative, shall we say. Can you explain how you can present factual information about 4-inch pipe and existing sewage problems, and yet we get a report from the authority saying no objections, which presumably means there are no problems? It comes back to the point I made earlier, Chair, and I'm trying to phrase it as a question. Councillor Child is giving us what would appear to be some facts, and I don't doubt they're right. How come these facts aren't coming to us from somewhere else? This exactly mirrors what I was saying before. We just blandly accept, and quite clearly there's an issue, and it's taken the ward councillor to come to this meeting to give us information that we should already know.
With regard to that,
Can I just interrupt, Councillor Child? I'm sorry. Councillor Illingworth, we have got no choice but to accept their reports, as the solicitor has already pointed out. So if you want to now reply, Councillor Child.
Chair, would you like me to answer that or not? So didn't quite pick it up. Yeah, I'm told one of the parish councillors lives on that corner where and she spoke to the men who were there sorting the problem out, and it's alleged that they said to the parish councillor that the problems are caused by the pipe leaving the pumping station to Kirby Bellers being on the small side. No, sorry, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Child. Any other questions? No? Fine. Well, thank you very much, Councillor Charles. Right, we've had the agent, we've had the ward councillor speak. It's now down to discussion. Is there any discussion that the members would like to have about this matter? No? Well, it needs it, Councillor Illingworth.
I was a bit late putting my hand up. You know, I just can't help but think that there is so much uncertainty and hesitancy and contradiction that it's a danger to approve it, albeit that it's an outline that's already been granted. But you know, here we are as the planning committee with an application in front of us. I don't know that we've got enough information to safely decide. So I'd like, much as I'm not a fan of deferrals, I would propose we defer it in order to get clarity on the issues that have been asked of the officers tonight. And the
Councillor Brown.
Following on from what Councillor Illingworth said, is that it is an allocated site, so I think refusal is not an option either, and nor is in that respect. I think if you're going down the road of deferral, I think as members we need to think of the reasons for that deferral and what we need on that. To me, the one big gap in it, and there is this ambiguity between the condition 3 between this current application and of this report on the reserve matters, where technically we need that clarifying, and maybe we could ask for the other items to be, and maybe could come back quite quickly to the next meeting and just tidy up the report a little bit to make it a bit clearer. That's what I would suggest if members are minded to go down that road, but I think I better just leave it open to let other people debate, but we just need to proceed with caution.
So Councillor Illingworth proposed deferral. Councillor Brown. Oh, he hasn't seconded it. He's just made his point. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Illingworth. I second that motion. I need, obviously, from our solicitor here, do we need case law, as it were, to actually say why we're deferring it, quoting reasons that are, because obviously the concern, I presume, is that they could say, right, we're going to appeal, and we could find ourselves facing an appeal. So it's a question of deferring. Does that really put us in an awkward position, and do we need to have, like, if we put a refusal in, do we need specific reasons?
Yep, you need to have reasons. So you obviously can't appeal it in terms of a refusal, but you could potentially go down the non-determination route. So you need to give some reasons for that. I think some have already come out. Councillor Brown gave rise to some, but yeah, they need to be clear the reasons why you're deferring and what you want to come back when the item returns.
Councillor Pritchett.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in support of Councillor Illingworth, Evans and Brown. In terms of the road issue, we've got things that say an ambulance can come down, etc., etc. But from the documents that I've got, the reason that the highways say they want 4.8 meters, and then if they're adopting it 7.8 in respect of including a little bit spare and a path, is that 2 vehicles that can pass simultaneously, which is different to enough clearance of people getting out of the way for an ambulance on a clear road. So that aspect I would like, clarity on it in the deferral.
What reasons have we got for deferral? Councillor Illingworth.
reference to the shall we say, confusion, for want of a better word to come into mind about the condition. But and I'm sorry if this sounds ever so familiar, but one of the reasons for deferral surely must be that we have received contradictory advice tonight. A gentleman has sat there and told us something that an organisation have chosen not to. So the doubt over whether there is an issue, I know you're going to say we have no option, but We do have a blooming option because we're the planning committee, for pity's sake. If there's enough doubt over some advice we're given, we're duty bound to ask for clarification on it. We need them to expand on it because somebody has told us that a workman on site has explained what the problem is and how many times it's had to be dealt with in the last few months.
So far, we've got condition 3. Councillor Brown.
If it's okay, Councillor Morton, Councillor Evans, I'll just maybe help you a little bit, just to get this here. Is I think something, and help me out, Tom, on this with the wording, and Richard, is that maybe if we could put something down around the fact that the committee would like to understand a rewritten condition 3 in full, to enable it to fully consider the impact of this report upon the site. Secondly, just bringing into with regards to access, passing and highways conditions, that we bring back within that the future report the full specifications and measurements in which to fully understand that. And I think that's really the only two areas that I can see that we could maybe do. So maybe if that was amenable to colleagues, you might be written in a certain way, might be able to help.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. At the moment, that excludes the bit about Severn Trent. If you wanted to, you could put something in to clarify the position of the statutory consultee. But I would, if you're going to go down that route, I would keep it open very wide at that point. But yet, Councillor Illingworth, it was your motion, so it's for you to decide, and Councillor Evans to confirm that you're happy to second that.
Yeah, I'm still happy to second that, but I would like, as has been pointed out, to include Severn Trent, our officers going back to Severn Trent and getting a categoric assurance that the situation is one that they feel will be able to deal with. That's all we need from them, and we want that in writing.
Just for the avoidance of any doubt then, and for the officers' benefit, is that to go back to Severn Trent and ask that they stand by their position of their consultee response?
Yes, please.
Councillor Holmes.
Obviously, I've got it on my phone, the guy you talked to, Severn Trent. But I would like to see Severn Trent come to the next planning meeting and actually to explain.
We can't force that, Councillor
No, we can't
Holmes.
force
We
it,
can only ask.
but I would like to ask. There was one other thing that I would like to put in, and people, I knew I'd got it somewhere, and it was, there's a footpath that comes down opposite, is it the Royal Oak, the pub? And it's really, really narrow, but we parked on there when we went to have a look, and it is actually quite dangerous. And I didn't know whether there's no provision for a barrier to come down. Do you know where I mean? From the site, there is, you would think for children, because there's going to be more people.
We can't insist on that, Councillor Holmes.
Well, then I would like the county council to be, highways then, to be looking at that as well. I'd like that put in the provision, please. Is that possible?
Just to, it's Councillor Illingworth's motion, so it's what Councillor Illingworth wants to confirm his motion is. But I think I'm a bit unclear about what you're asking the county highway authority to do in that.
You're clear? Oh
No,
well,
I'm unclear.
It's just at the, perhaps you haven't seen it, but there's the Royal Oak pub, and there's a really little narrow footpath that goes from the site. Well, it's going to be a lot bigger site now because there's going to be those houses there, and it comes really steep down onto the road, which is quite fast. And I thought that it would have been better if there was like a barrier. You know, you can put those railings up, can't you? That was just something that I thought would be helpful, that's all. And I wondered if we could have asked the county council as well to look at that. Do you mind?
I'll ask the planning officers, but I don't think we can ask a statutory consultee to change their position or ask them to include something if they haven't done that already. But I'll ask Richard or Andrew to confirm that.
My thinking is that to ask the county as the highway authority, who obviously cover public rights of way, to put something of that nature in, I don't think we could enforce it or require it categorically by condition. It's something that should, I think, have been dealt with at the outline stage. I don't think there would be any problems, however, members approaching or residents or the parish council approaching the county highways separate to say, look, we're a bit concerned about this. Is there anything that you can do under your remit to put this in? For example, you know, whether they look at improving the point there to put a kissing gate and fence in, so at least that way there is more of a barrier along the lines of what you want, but I don't think we could do it here, I'm afraid.
Councillor Chandler.
The parish council do have that authority to request the Highways Authority to do such things.
Down to the parish council then, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but I mean, councillor Charles can
Yeah.
advise the parish council
Yeah,
of that.
yeah, I'm
Thank
sure
you.
he will. Councillor Illingworth.
Chair, two things. Yes, I don't think I couldn't maintain the proposition if we were asking for something that hasn't already been.
No,
Then that's not bringing something new into the equation is not in order. But just picking up on what the solicitor said before, I'm afraid my answer is no. Asking them if they stand by their original decision or opinion is not enough, because they could come back with a one-word answer. Yes. We're asking them to make sure, we're asking them to give us the confidence and give us the information. So don't just ask them if they still feel the same. In the light of some contradictory information that we have been given, that we have reason to believe, we ask Severn Trent if they would justify that position and give us some technical details to back that up. That's the wording I'd like.
Chair, just because I say, yeah,
The question will be asked, but we can't force anybody to attend. So Councillor Illingworth, so that we can wind this up, because we have debated it for an hour and 3/4. Are there any other conditions that you've
I
not?
just will confirm, I agree with what Councillor Illingworth was, and if the officers could include the evidence that's given from the parish council to Severn Trent, because that then gives them something they need to answer. I agree with them. We can't just go back and say,
Councillor Child's here, and I know that Councillor Child is more than capable of telling the parish council what's happened here.
no,
tonight.
I mean, when we write to Severn Trent, the statement is on page 28. I think we need to give them evidence where we have concerns. So in other words, to
Thank
actually
you.
say about the tankers appearing
Thank you.
and all the rest of it.
The deferral with the conditions stated, which my understanding is condition 3 rewritten, access and highways position, and clarify the position of Severn Trent. So that deferral, that deferral has been made and seconded. So can we have a show of hands? Those in favour? That's a unanimous count. So there are no refusals, no abstentions. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Awfully, if I excuse myself, I'm beginning to feel unwell and I'd like to go home
Yeah.
while I can still drive all right.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Illingworth. We're now on to the St Mary's Hospital Melton Mowbray application, the discharge of condition 30, which are the vagrant cells attached to the planning permission. So over to Gareth for this.
Thank you, Chair. Just waiting for the slides. Okay, so this application is the discharge of condition 30, which relates to the precise details on the vagrant cell memorial feature. This slide up here is the layout plan that was associated to the reserve matters that members will recall came to the July meeting. Within the blue area, you have the approved hospital conversion, and within the red edge area is the residential development of 38 new units. The yellow box is the public open space area that's associated to the approved development. And if we move to the next slide, this is a zoomed in version of that public open space. Members will note that the 3 squares within the public open space, there's 2 landscaped squares, and then the central square is the position of the memorial feature. The position of the feature has been approved as part of the reserve matters application. And then if we go to the next slides, we will have the visuals for the feature. The design has evolved over time with input from ward members and the conservation officer. The external materials are reclaimed brickwork from the vagrant cells, as will be the joinery details, as well as the external door as well. There was a query from the conservation officer primarily about the capping and the corbelled eaves. You'll note that this has now been included within the revised scheme. So you've got reclaimed stone clapping to protect the brickwork, and you've got corbelled eaves detailing. The scale and proportions of this feature are an exact replica of the vagrant cell feature, minus the roof and the elevations. This is to allow some natural surveillance through the feature and allow for or to minimise the risk of any antisocial behaviour. The applicant has confirmed that they are willing to set up a maintenance company to allow the vagrant cell feature to be maintained long term and for any future damage to be rectified. Officers are happy that the feature fulfills all the criteria of condition 30 and is now recommending that this condition now be discharged. Thank you, Chair.
Gareth, any questions for Gareth? Councillor Evans?
Yeah, it's just, could you bring that slide back again, if that's possible, please? Oh, it's over there. It's just obviously my slight concern is, especially with the door, the structural integrity of the building. And I know maybe that's not a planning concern, but obviously a door that tall with only that small amount of wall to support it, it will not last long, in my opinion, and that would be my concern, but that's not a planning matter as such. But I just feel that the structure looks inherently unstable, and that would be my concern if we pass this, but I'm sure it will be passed, but it just, to me, doesn't look as though it's going to hold up for very long.
Any other questions?
Well, the question is, in terms of planning, is there anything we can say that's structurally we need this to stand? There's no point in us passing it as a planning matter and then within 2 weeks some of our friends get there and push the door down or whatever. To me, there's about 6 courses of brickwork which they can bolt to, and that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The door would have a steel frame. You might not be able to pick it up, but there is a lighter grey just around the door. It's a steel frame, and the door will be weather treated as well. Okay.
Thank you, Gareth. Any other questions? Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. Is there going to be an information plaque giving the history of it all? And it's the sort of, I think the Civic Society demobbed, but somebody could check it. Is there going to be one of those of a decent quality on it?
Gareth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You might not be able to pick it up from the image, but yes, the precise details aren't on there, but the memorial plaque is positioned within the two windows there for information purposes.
Okay, any other questions? No speakers, so it's now open to debate. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Posnet. Yeah, it's really good to see this come here. Actually, I know there's been a little bit of pain, Gareth, to get it. So no, you know, it is what it is. But I think I'm glad to see after the hard work, and we have been involved in some of this, Pam. Some of the members have been on the committee at the time of it. It's keeping a bit of heritage in Melton when we probably could have lost it, and they didn't have to provide this. And I think we negotiated well, and I think the officers did a good job when you listen to us, etc. I think the way it's sort of been designed, and we have, both of us, Pam, have been involved in some of the discussions, but basically, you know, the stuff like the steel frame to keep it up has been thought about. The memorial plaque was taken on board, using the brick. Hopefully it's there, and maybe it can be a feature where maybe school children and other people can come and look and walk, because it's you know, it's near Brownlow, etc., and those sorts of places. So I'm really happy with this, and I'm happy to recommend approval of this if I can find a second, please.
Councillor Brown's proposed, Councillor Webster seconded it. Chandler?
Well, just to quickly say, Madam Chairman, that I went originally when it was shrouded in brambles and nettles, and we fought our way in. Hasn't this thing come on? Yes. And I'm absolutely delighted that we've got there at last. And I think we've got to thank everybody who's had an input in this, because it's been a long, arduous thing, but they were worth saving. I'm just, my only concern is it's very near the public open space, and I hope people behave themselves and don't try to wreck the place.
I think one reason why it has been put there, from what my understanding is, but you know what I mean? It will not be a target like it would have been if it was closed off.
I mean, it must have been 5 years since we brought this up.
Oh, it must have been 5 years, yes, and it was debated long and hard. Councillor Fisher.
I just wanted to say, really echoed what Councillor Brown said, that it's refreshing to see a design that not only utilises the original materials from the vagrant cells, but also meets the aims of policy N13. So it could be there for years to come for people to read and understand what went on there.
Thank you. Well, it's been proposed and seconded. Oh, sorry, Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I actually, at the front of this, put disgraceful. I know that this is all we're getting. I know that. I don't know how many more people in this room are Meltonians. Is this actually being live streamed? Is it being live streamed tonight? And so the people of Melton have got something else that's disappeared. I know this is the best we can expect. I know that. But to me, I would have liked it in its entirety, because I cannot see how this can actually show. And I know you can't do any better, but I know that it is not really the way that the vagrant cells looked. And I know you can't do any better, but I would much have preferred to have left them as they were. And I don't see any problem with that. And so, yes, we've got it, but it's not, it's another part of Melton disappearing.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Holmes. It's been proposed, it's been seconded. Can I show of hands of all in favour? Oh, I've lost count. Right, there's 10 people in favour. Any refusals? We've got one abstention. We've got one abstention. Oh, sorry, my maths is not very good. It was 9-4 and 1 abstention. I forgot that John had gone. Thank you. Okay, that's fine. So thank you very much, Gareth. You've worked hard on that, I know. Right, we're now at the application that is a Melton Borough Council application for raising the roofs of the flats north of the car park on Chapel Street, Melton Mowbray. And I believe that's you, Richard.
It is again, yes, Chair, thank you. So if you go through the slides again, obviously the application's before you because it's a Melton Borough Council application. The roof being raised is that on the buildings outlined in red on the slide in front of you. If you look at the next slide, this is obviously a 3D of the flat showing the roof raised. The roof's being raised 17 centimeters, so less than 0.2 of a meter, which is in part why you can't see any notable change in that elevate in that visualization. And the next drawing, the next slide, shows the actual roof print, which just gives you a context for the actual area being covered and being raised. So the application is, as set out in the agenda, to raise the roof of these blocks of flats by 17 centimeters. It's to the south, it's beside the Chapel Street car park. To the west of the site's United Reformed Church, which is a Grade 2 listed building. As set out in the main agenda, the view of officers is that the application is acceptable, wouldn't result in any harm or adverse impact on the immediate or wider area, including that of the heritage asset, and as such is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Richard. Any questions for Richard? Councillor Chandler. Councillor Chandler has moved the proposal. Is there a seconder? Seconder for Councillor. Can I show of hands, all in favour? That makes 9 in favour because Councillor Brown withdrew because of his interest. That brings the conclusion to our planning meeting this evening. Thank you all for attending and for those of you that have listened in. And I now draw the meeting to a close, and our next meeting, just a reminder, is October the 13th. Is it? Yes. Yeah, October the 13th. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Good night.